everybody. Good evening. How's it going? Um, that is not what I was expecting to wake up to this morning when I got up from my work at 2 o'clock this morning. I woke up in my stupor, 2 a.m., getting ready to go to work. And I was like, see, my phone had blown up with messages for the group chat, for Phil and Regan and everybody else. Fucking Brendan Rodgers has left. Martin O'Neill's the manager, along with Shaun Maloney. And I'm like, am I still fucking dreaming? I was like, is this some sort of fucking nightmare scenario that I've woken up to this morning? I was like, this can't be right. I must need to wake myself back up. But no, much to my chagrin, it's all real. But yeah, so we've got a hell of a lot to talk about tonight, don't we, boys and
Yep,
girls?
looking forward to it, Connor.
Yep, so it's nice to see Regan here. He's not been on in a while, so it's nice to see you join us tonight, mate, along with Phil McGinley, our resident,
Hey, Phil, how you doing, mate? All right?
Aye, no bad. Just another quiet day in the world of Celtic, mate. Just another quiet day. Aye, nothing out of the ordinary happened, did it? You know, just another one of these days. Madhouse, absolute madhouse, as Connor said.
But yeah, guys, so a lot to talk about on the agenda tonight, which is putting it fucking mildly, to be honest. So, but yeah, guys, before we do get stuck into tonight's discussions, please don't forget, you guys can share the podcast far and wide, subscribe to the Boys in the Bus down below. If you do want to be notified when we do go live, there's a little bell icon on the YouTube website there below. If you're watching on your phone, it might not be in the phone, but if you're watching on a laptop or an iPad, the notification bell might be there. You can highlight that and you'll be notified when we do go live. You can also become a Boys in the Bus member for $1.99 a month. Totally optional. All you get is a wee holographic Celtic badge next to your name, but it does help, keep the wheels on the road and keep us going. So any, things like that you guys decide to do is really much appreciated. So, guys, I don't know what cheese to start with, but I was just going to start myself. I'll start myself now. So, obviously, last night, just after 10 o'clock, Celtic released a statement confirming Brendan Rodgers has resigned with immediate effect, with Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney taking charge for the interim period. So, Regan, since you've not been on in a good wee while, I'm going to ask you first. What was your immediate reaction when you seen all that come out?
I was taken back, really, because I've been doing a lot of stuff over the past few weeks on so many other places, but it's great to come back on with you guys and speak about it. And I think it's just taking me back, but I just got the feeling from talking to people over the past couple of days that Brendan Rodgers inside the press conference, that he didn't act with the normal Brendan Rodgers. That's the kind of text messages I've been getting from people that I know that were inside the press conference, and also people that I've spoke to around Celtic Pub today. But I don't think I'm really surprised, because I think the Celtic Football Club's not been running properly since the start of the season. I think probably the best thing for Brendan would have been to leave after the transfer window for me, because that would have been a clear message. I just think now, Connor, my general feeling is, I don't think Brendan Rodgers wants this season on his resume. I don't think he wants to be involved in it. I think he wants to be taken out of the situation, because I think personally, Brendan Rodgers has been thrown under the bus. And me as a Celtic supporter, I was so disappointed last night. So disappointed in the way the club spoke about Celtic's most successful manager in a very long time. Brendan Rodgers has been absolutely brilliant. No. I can totally understand this season has not been great, but Brendan Rodgers overall has been modern day Celtic's greatest ever manager.
Yeah, we're going to get stuck into the meat and potatoes of that statement.
Sorry, Connor.
Sorry,
just before you go on, see in 2016, when Brendan Rodgers was brought into Celtic, Celtic when they used to win in trebles. But Brendan Rodgers changed the whole perception around the club. He changed the whole standards of the club. Brendan Rodgers brought Celtic up to where it should be now. And of course, people like me and you, Connor, we're now being so used to success. But I'm sure for people like Johnny and Phil and people like that can tell us Celtic wasn't always like this. So Brendan Rodgers brought that standards up. And Brendan Rodgers should be credited. And I just feel like the way Dermot Desmond spoke about Brendan Rodgers was totally not what was needed. Of course, right? The statement from Dermot Desmond last night, of course there's truth in the middle. But there was that is not a way to speak about a Celtic manager that's brought so much success to the club.
Oh no, 100%, mate. Phil, so Regan's actually brought up my next point there quite smoothly. So obviously after the statement released last night confirming Brendan Rodgers has ended his tenure, that was swiftly followed by an absolutely scathing statement released by Dermot Desmond, the non-executive shareholder, slandering Brendan Rodgers. So if any of you haven't read it, I'm gonna quickly read it, because I know some people probably read the statement that is the one saying Brendan Rodgers left. But if anybody hasn't read it, I feel like I'm doing the actual wording of the statement a disservice for how bad it is without actually reading it out, as itself, because the things that are written in this statement now have to be heard to be believed. I genuinely think it's that like borderline psychotic for me, the way that this all came about. So this was a statement last night at around about 10 o'clock by Dermot Desmond, so addressing the Celtic support. Brendan Rodgers has today tendered his resignation as manager of Celtic Football Club. I want to acknowledge Brendan's contribution across the 2 spells as manager, during which he helped deliver success, the forms part of which the club's modern history. However, I must also express my deep disappointment at the way past several months have unfolded. When we brought Brendan back to Celtic 2 years ago, it was done in complete trust and belief in his ability to lead the club into a new era of sustained success. Unfortunately, his conduct and communication in recent months has not reflected that trust. The irony seeping out of this statement has to be believed. Is this coming for the same fucking shareholder that doesn't show up to the AGM with the club that he's the supposedly majority non-executive shareholder of? Doesn't turn up to the AGM. Very rarely does supporters. When Celtic games are on, he'd rather be playing golf with fucking DJ Khaled and Rory McIlroy. Nice one. So in June, both Michael Nicholson expressed to Brendan we were keen to offer him a contract extension to reaffirm the club's full backing and long-term commitment to him. He said he would have to think about it and revert. Yet, in subsequent press conferences, Brendan implied the club had made no commitment to offer him a contract. That was simply untrue. We met with Brendan regularly, including in December last year at the start of the summer, with regular dialogue in between to discuss and agree our collective strategy, priorities and approach. Every player signed and every player sold during his tenure was done so with Brendan's full knowledge, approval and endorsement. Any insinuation otherwise is absolutely false. His later public statements about transfers and club operations came entirely out of the blue. At no point prior to these remarks had he raised any such concerns with me, Michael, or any member of the board or the executive team. In reality, he was given final say over football matters and was consistently backed during the recruitment process, including record investment in players he personally identified and approved. Okay, so record investment then. Is that why we spent only about £15 million this season? Maybe, just at that, which has cost us untold millions in the fucking Champions League as well. Back the entire way, my fucking hole. This entire statement is nothing but a bunch of fucking horse shit. And this big mustachioed cunt can just take a flying fuck to himself. He can. This guy is an absolute cancer in the club, mate. Honestly. It continues on here. When his comments were made publicly, I sought to address him directly. Brendan and I met for over 3 hours at his home in Scotland to discuss the issue. Despite ample opportunity, he was unable to identify a single instance where the club had obstructed or failed to support him. The facts did not match his public narrative. Oh, really? Really? Because I've got receipts, Dermot Desmond. So here's a collection of little statements that previous Celtic managers have came away with in terms of not being backed properly. The first two are from Brendan Rodgers himself. These were in press conferences and stuff like that. We have a recruitment model here. This from Brendan Rodgers. I can only work within that. We identify the players we want, but there's often a delay in negotiations. By the time a deal goes through, the market has moved on. That's always frustrating. Following on, here's Brendan Rodgers again. Are we clear on we are clear on where we need to improve, and for whatever reason we haven't been able to. There's only so many ways that I can dress that up. We don't have the players here. It was pretty clear. So that's Brendan Rodgers telling you twice, without all the recent press conference stuff that he's came up with this season. And Postecoglou. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. I don't know. I think I've been pretty consistent in saying we need more players in. Obviously, I haven't done a good enough job convincing people that we need to bring other people in. I'm not going to shy away from it. I've tried to be as forceful as I can. Here's come the board's number one fan, Neil Lennon, who's also criticised the board. There was a lot we wanted to do in the summer, but the financial reality and club strategy meant you can't always act as quickly as you'd like. Sometimes it feels like the process is just too slow. Ronnie Dyler. We've had players we wanted to bring in. But things take too long. Negotiations drag. And by the time we get them, the market has moved on. It makes it difficult to get the squad together quickly. That's frustrating because it slows down the preparation for the season. So that's multiple cases of evidence against you, Dermot Desmond, of previous managers, including Brendan Rodgers, who in those, no less twice, has said it in press conferences to the public, widely available for you to see. So that's been brought up. So follows on from there. Regrettably, his words and actions since then have been divisive, misleading and self-serving. They have continued to contribute to a toxic atmosphere around the club and fueled hostility towards members of the executive team and the board. Some of the abuse directed at them and their families has been entirely unwarranted and unacceptable. I'm sorry, I don't remember seeing a single Celtic fan on Twitter saying, fuck the board and I see Michael Nicholson's wife and kids, get up them and all. Not a single Celtic fan has ever directed any sort of vitriol towards the board's, family members at all. So that is just a barefaced lie. And also, the protests about the board were going on before Brendan Rodgers started dipping in form in the season. It was going on before that when we're still winning games, still keeping up with Hearts. So all this narrative that he's trying to spin is it's just a yarn of lies. The further you continue to read it, it just gets, unfurled and unfurled. You want a good laugh? Every member of the board and the executive team is deeply passionate about Celtic and acts at all times with professionalism, integrity, and shared desire for success. What has failed recently was not due to our structure or model, but to one individual's desire for self-preservation at the expense of others. Celtic structure where the manager oversees football, the chief executive manages operations, and the board provides oversight has served the club with great success for more than 2 decades. We all share the same ambition to ensure Celtic's continued success domestically and to achieve further progress in Europe. Aye, that'll be why you didn't, get the ball out and invest in us to try and get you Champions League football, damn it. Every pound generated by the club is reinvested towards these goals and continuous improvement of Celtic Football Club. Hardly fucking hard. Is that why we've got £70 million sitting in the bank, just sitting there, gathering dust, not getting spent, not a bean getting spent, but it's just sitting there, Is that getting reinvested? Every penny to be me, you, Phil, Regan, people who are on benefits, people who can't afford to feed their kids, try and put it in the club? No, it's not. So this is the final wee bit, and I'll get on to you, Phil, because I know I've been going on for a long while here.
It's all right, mate.
Celtic is greater than any one person. Our focus now is on restoring harmony, strengthening the squad, and continuing to build a club body that was values, traditions, and supporters. Yes, Dermot, Celtic Football Club is bigger than one person, and it's even bigger than you. So that means that you can't sit there and try and use Brendan Rodgers as your human shield to try and deflect all the negative criticism away from you and try and throw him under the bus and try and pin this entire clusterfuck of a season so far on him. It is absolutely appalling. The language he's used is disgusting. And for me, Phil, I think Brendan Rodgers could have a potential legal case on his hands because what is written in that statement is slanderous to, I think, the nth degree. And I just hope to God that the Brendan's lawyering up right now. But Phil, mate, I'm nearly to breath, mate. So I
Calm
want to
down,
get,
yeah.
I want to get your reaction to the statement that Dermot Desmond released last night, and also what he said.
Unhinged is the first word that comes to mind. That is, there's a lot to unpack in that. There is a lot. The fact he said that all the members of the executive board behave with professionalism, well, ironically, putting out a statement that did not have any professionalism in it at all, is just, again, as you said at the start, the irony dripping off of that whole statement is incredible. My first question, there's a lot of questions to this. My first one is if all of this is true, that Dermot Desmond's put out there, why did he let it go on to this point? Why did they not just get rid of Major? Because this didn't start like yesterday. This didn't start last week. Brendan Rodgers has been vocal pretty much since the middle of the summer when we were stalling on transfers, and then when the window closed, it started to really ramp up. So if all this was true, then why did you let him continue in situ until now? It's like if he was that much of a problem and he's been mouthing off about you for months now, why have you waited? Why have you only waited to this second to bring out a statement? Talk about self-preservation. I don't know. I think that's a bit of self-preservation in that sense. So that's the first thing that stands out about that. And yeah, going back to when the Celtic Fan Collective met with Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay a few weeks ago, and obviously they were very adamant there is no disconnect between the board and the manager. Well, evidently, that statement that came out, it says otherwise. To me, there's a disconnect there, a massive disconnect. And in terms of the legal side of it, you'd think that a businessman like Dermot Desmond, unless that is watertight what he's put out there, because there surely is a legal case coming. Well, there has to be. Like if that is. I don't think for a second it's all true at all. There'll probably be bits of truth on both sides. We'll get different stories coming out, but that's just mad what he's been in. Absolutely two-footed him beyond belief. So wild.
I think it's one of the worst statements that Celtic's ever put out. I mean, it just lacks so much credibility and so much respect. Mm-hmm. But that's not how a big club should do its business. A big club should do its business properly. And that just seems like it was throwing things out there to protect themselves. And okay, that might be truth in the middle, like you said, Phil, but that's not the way that the club should do things. Yep. The club should be doing things all as one. And okay, you can have your say, you can back the board and you can also back Brendan, but you need to think about the level. Everybody here is a human being, and for Brendan Rodgers to be on that statement and speak about him in that manner, I just think it's totally wrong. And the other point I want to talk about is Michael Nicholson on the board. Now, Michael Nicholson said when Brendan Rodgers come back, he said Celtic as a football club want to do things on a world-class level. Celtic as a football club, I've got Johnny Kenny as the main striker. That's not a world-class level. Johnny Kenny in the summer was very, very close, from what I heard, was supposedly going to St Mirren or Motherwell. Now, how come Celtic as a football club are supposed to be doing things on a world-class level if they're now left with Johnny Kenny? And that's not me putting bad on Johnny Kenny. I'm saying that basically I'm just letting you guys know that that's not Celtic doing things on a world-class level. Celtic are letting the fans down. And I think it's just very hard to speak about, because I think Brendan Rodgers should be remembered for being a very good Celtic manager, but now it just feels like the board are totally put every sort of blame on Brendan Rodgers. I think it's totally wrong. And the biggest thing for me as well, they're taking no accountability at all. That's the biggest problem for me. Okay, they can say, see if they come out and say, right, we've got things wrong, we are doing things totally wrong, right? I totally buy into it and go, at least Michael Nicholson Derek Desmond are putting their hands up and saying, okay, they're doing things wrong, but they're not. They're taking no accountability. If people are asking, if people in Grace's last week from the Celtic Collective were speaking about Celtic's transfer strategy, Celtic refused to answer the question about the transfer strategy. They says that Brendan okayed every signing, and I can tell you for one thing, Brendan did not okay every signing. So I just find there's a whole disconnect from the club. People at the club have not got joined up for drinking, and that's never going to work. It's never going to work. I mean, look at the team at the top of the league. Everybody at that club has got joined up drinking. That's why they're doing so well. And okay, people can say, well, Celtic's got so much success over the past 13, 14 years. And maybe the success on the football pitch has maybe masked over the problems at the club because they've not had a proper challenge from Rangers, from Hearts, from Aberdeen. But the whole strategy from the club is wrong. They've got so much money in the bank, and to be in the position they're in is just negligence. It's negligence. That's the only word I can say it.
Yeah.
And I think it's so disappointing for a person that is a season ticket holder, someone that goes to all the matches and goes, right. We should be going to the matches and thinking Celtic are doing a good job, especially on the pitch, and they're doing a good pitch off the pitch as well. But nobody's got the Celtic board are not speaking to the supporters that often, so it's very difficult to buy into what they're doing.
Yeah, 100% Nicky, mate. Phil, the board just clearly lack the ability to look inward, and take any kind of responsibility on themselves. It's very much like we are right, you're all wrong. Brendan Rodgers is wrong. The fans are wrong. We are perfectly fine. The way we run the club is clearly acceptable because of the domestic success and the, okay European campaigns that we've maybe had over the past few years. Bear in mind, we haven't won a fucking knockout tie in 20 odd years. So, there's another black mark on the record. But Phil, for me, mate, I think that the domestic success and getting us into Europe, and we've not been in Europe as like anywhere near the amount of times that we should have been, or at least getting Champions League football. Every bit of success I think that has came Celtic's way over the past 20 years, potentially even longer, has been done in spite of the board. It's because of having a manager and players in there who are willing to, do the hard yards and pull things over a line when they're not necessarily getting backed. And it's in spite of them, the fact that we've got the success. Like I don't give them any kudos at all for getting this across the line. Like, they gave us £11 million for Arnie Engels. So what? So what? Like, that's chump change. Like, that is nothing. Like, back in the day, like, Celtic used to spend like 3/4 of their budget on like 3 players. Do you know what I mean? Like back in the day, like they were spending like £8 million on Chris Sutton back in the early 2000s, when we never had £77 million in the bank to piss away back then. Dermot Desmond is this giant, mustachioed dragon just sitting on a giant hoard of gold.
The Monopoly man.
Like
quite literally,
Well, he's definitely past go because he takes fuck all to do with the club and just doesn't turn up. Do you know what I mean? So, but Phil, for me, like everything we've seen, the trebles, the quadruple trebles, becoming the world's most successful football club, it's all been in spite of the board, and it's been because we as individuals, as fans, have backed the team, time and time again, and backed the managers when they weren't getting, the funding as well. Like, just it's everything in spite of them, nothing to do with them at all, in my opinion.
I want to ask you guys a question, right? So see me speak about Arnie Engels and trustee, and we put the blame at Rodgers, right? And we go, oh, Rodgers can't be trusted. Do you guys actually believe that Rodgers signed those players because I think for me, I personally don't believe that Brendan Rodgers sat and went, yes, I'll take Arnie Engels, I'll take whoever. And I'm not sure, I just think that more and more clubs that they are now being run by people in the background. I don't think managers have so much say now. So I don't think we can really blame Brendan because, like, even if you look back at Sub, Southampton Pusey from Man City,
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at people like that, you know, and during some of that poor persons, he's been in the squad for quite for quite a few months now. But clearly these guys have not got the okay from the manager. So it's okay saying, well, because it's a large spend of money that Brendan must have said okay. I just think that more and more now, I think we need to look at the recruitment team and not the manager, because you look at the. I don't like to use Rangers Hearts, right? But if you look at Rangers, right, they struggled to get the last two managers because the board said we're going to pick the players, and I think that's the same thing as Celtic. You look at Hearts as well; they're being told that the board are going to pick the players. So I just think more and more now, football clubs are not being run by the manager; they're being run by the board.
Aye, Phil, I'll let you take this one, mate.
Well, if it's all true what Dermot Desmond said, Regan, then apparently he did sign off on them. There's a comment here from Condors I'm going to bring up. He thinks that Brendan Rodgers probably signed off on the bigger ones, especially Engels, Trusty, Bernardo, the ones that we spent a bit of money on, Balakisha maybe, Tunekti. But I mean, your ones like Yamada and all that, I just can't imagine Brendan Rodgers was really, was scouting on those. But they say if what Dermot Desmond put out is true, and many people in the chat, because we've got to balance this up, guys. There are a lot of people in the chat that are saying good riddance, Brendan Rodgers, and we have to look at the facts that it was.
He's not without blame at all. He's not without blame at all.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it was red rotten to watch at times this season. I imagine they ran out of ideas. I ran out of motivation as well. Couldn't get the best out of the players. And the players have also got to take a look at themselves. We've seen it in other clubs around world football. Player power can force a manager out as well, where they just phone it in and stop trying. That's happened to teams at Man United and stuff like that over the years. There could be elements of that. So there's there's the board have played their part, the manager's played his part, the players have played their part. There's all sorts of blame to be pointed here. But last night I say the board, the Dermot Desmond statement, just unhinged. Brendan Rodgers say it had to change in some way. But what we now need to look at is, and I don't want to be proven right again in this, going back to the summer when I said at the start of the summer, Balaki should have been a Celtic player to go down to the last week of the window. Celtic, do not prove me right on this one that I've said a few times now. Shaun Maloney, I said the reason I didn't want Brendan Rodgers to leave, even though it was going bad, was I was so worried about this board. They cannot be trusted to make a real forward-thinking appointment, a real progressive appointment. Yeah. And here we are now in a position where Martin O'Neill is the manager, but most of us can kind of see what's going on here because Shaun Maloney's his assistant. And I just feel like this is all just a front. It's essentially Shaun Maloney's going to be doing the tactics. He's going to be picking the team or not. And for me, Shaun Maloney cannot be the full-time manager going forward. Martin O'Neill's made it very clear this is all interim. And we keep saying that. And of course, you can't decide what interim is. It could be a few games. It could be the rest of the season. We don't know at the moment. I think Sunday is going to play a massive part. I think if Celtic do find it in them to win on Sunday, if they can manage to find that extra gear, grind out and get through to the final, I think the club are going to say, "No, we need to give Martin and Shaun the final. They got us there." So then it goes on, and then if they were to win the final against Motherwell or St Mirren, they've won us a trophy. We'll give them a wee bit longer. So these are the things that are going through my head right now. But for me, they should just be Martin O'Neill at the very latest. Shaun Maloney should be here until the next international break, which is in mid-November. That's the very latest in my mind it should be. But I am worried, Connor and Regan, that this is building up to them being in charge for the rest of the season and leading to Shaun Maloney taking over in the summer. And I don't want to be proven right on that, but yeah, come on, Celtic, prove me wrong, please.
Aye. this is still the same Celtic board that appointed Neil Aaron and the Shillers at Hampden. You know what I mean? So after he took over as interim in charge manager, and then obviously got the treble over the line. Do you know what I mean? And fair enough, he did well, but I think everybody was kind of on the side of like, cheers, Lenny, you've came in, you've got it over the line. Thank you for your efforts. Now off you pop, basically, and we can try and get something new and fresh in the door. And he was then proceeded to be given, a 12-month rolling contract on the back of it. I can definitely see a reality in which we could potentially win tomorrow night, beat Falkirk. That's already a quote-unquote boost for the Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney duo. And then we've got the semi-final against Rangers on Sunday. And if, we were to win that, and I don't know, if we were to scrape by it, I would maybe, it maybe wouldn't look as good, and maybe, they would get questioned on if, they just get it permanently, or Maloney would get it permanently, whatever. But if, a potential reality in which we play Rangers on Sunday and we beat them relatively comfortably, the board, the gears will start turning in the board's head, and they're like, hold on a minute, we don't need to go out and hire a contract manager who's going to demand big wages and can come in and do all this. So it's I could see it 100% happening, because it is just the kind of sly, like, sneaky move that the board would try and pull. They would just continue to drag out as long as results are still coming in the door.
That's it.
And I'm going to be honest. If results go well from now until whatever happens, people will maybe just naturally take their eyes off the board, and the feel-good factor will start coming back. And I have to sit here in front of the 101 of you watching, in front of you, Phil, Regan. I'm begging you, with everything I've got in me, do not let them away with it. Yeah. If the feel-good factor comes back, if Maloney does well, if Martin O'Neill brings you a bit of like gusto and fight back into the team, and we start looking like a decent team again, do not let them away with pulling the rug out from under us again and just getting away with absolute murder and appointing someone as the manager, the permanent manager, who is underqualified and does not arguably deserve it. And it doesn't really matter how good that they do, because it's just a stopgap. It's papering over the massive gaping cracks that are in Celtic now.
I think the strategy of the club is going to be so interesting, because if the strategy is good and proper, if Dermot Desmond's feeling has been like that for weeks, he should already be talking to agents and talking to people. I mean, I don't think this should be a thing where he just woke up yesterday morning and went, right, I better start talking to people. If he's been thinking about that deep about Brendan Rodgers, then surely he's been working on this for a few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd like to think so, but that would be involved being proactive.
So I know Connor's saying if Celtic beat Falkirk, they beat Rangers, they do whatever, then they just stick with Martin O'Neill. But surely no, because if Dermot Desmond is the guy that he says he is, I mean, he's got to be working in the background. He surely knows many agents and stuff like that who can do the work. Yeah. But I'm just interested to see the club strategy, because nobody actually knows the strategy. I mean, nobody actually.
I think I know the strategy. There is no strategy.
Aye. Just throw things at a wall and hope it sticks. We got that clue from the Celtic Fans Collective's meeting when the first question they asked them was about the footballing strategy. And then Nicholson gave them a whole thing about being world class at everything we do, which just isn't the case right now at all. Playing in the Champions League, which we're not doing this season. So these sorts of things. But the Maloney thing, like, I always saw it coming. Be like, in the summer, this is a guy who is 42 years old, which in manager sense is relatively young. He's got all his coaching badges. He's worked under some good managers already as a coach. He's done a bit of football management himself. At this stage in his career, he should still be out furthering his CV as a manager. But then in the summer, he takes this kind of backward step to become effectively a liaison between the Celtic B team and the first team. So a lot of us will instantly seeing like, wait a minute, this reeks of a contingency plan where if for some reason Brendan Rodgers doesn't make it to the end of the season, whatever happens, They have got a guy there, a yes man, who will simply be slotted in as the manager, and that's what none of it. We just can't have that, because Celtic, for me, the job has to be an experienced head that's done something in the game. For me, I don't feel that you can have young managers really at Celtic. I think you have to go out there and get somebody who has done something and has achieved a few things in the game. Because to me, you appoint a younger manager, I just think it's going to end in tears. I would be very much in favour of us looking in a fresh direction. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou's name's coming up a lot, but I do think we've seen now, every time we've brought a manager back, it usually ends pretty badly. Neil Lennon got an initial bounce when he first came back, but then it went very, very wrong. Brendan Rodgers, obviously. You could even go back as far as when Billy McNeil came back for the second spell. He obviously had the centenary double in his second season, which was one of the best seasons any Celtic fans ever lived through. But then it quickly went wrong in the late 80s into the early 90s. And Celtic, I feel, needs to be looking further afield for fresh ideas. One of the comments that I did star was from Chris M, just saying, question, do you guys agree the next manager should have zero connection with Celtic? A fresh set of eyes and ideas devoid from heartstrings being tugged. Regan, what do you think of that?
I think that's great, but the big thing for me, speaking to people as well, I think the biggest thing for us, a lot of people on the board as well, a lot of people on the board that, like, if you look at Desmond as well, his football, the knowledge is not great from what I'm told, Phil. So, like, he just tends to go back to his old.
A shame we're not a golf club, eh?
Yeah, I mean, but he just tends to go back to the old people he knows. And I know Peter Lawwell appointed Ange Postecoglou. Obviously, you've got to do a bit of credit there, but I just don't trust the people in situ, Phil, to be able to do things properly, because if you look at it, Brendan Rodgers was the best possible manager that we, as a football club at the moment, are able to attract. And we still managed to mess it up. Because the big thing for me, Phil, Brendan Rodgers as a manager, he's not hard to deal with. I mean, I've heard people saying today that he does the same thing at Liverpool, but Brendan Rodgers is not asking for £40 million at Celtic. Brendan Rodgers is asking for maybe 20 million to spend on two players. He's not asking for a lot, and I think sometimes that of course the board, I think they need to narrow their mind and stop focusing on making sure that they're one step ahead of Rangers. Because the other thing for me is, do you guys believe that if, say, it was Rangers at the top of the league by 8 points, Brendan Rodgers would have been sacked anyway? So I think the board have been negligent in terms of thinking, right, we're not going to have a challenge from Hearts, and obviously Rangers are not looking great either, so they're not actually bothered about recruitment. They'll be negligent on recruitment, and I think that question that you speak about, I mean, I said to Connor yesterday, I would go for someone like Craig Bellamy. I know he's got a Celtic connection, but that's a guy that worked with the Bayern Munich manager. He also was recruited by Ange Postecoglou because Vincent was at Anderlecht, and he wanted to bring in Ange Postecoglou and Craig Bellamy as a tag team there, but Ange moved on to Celtic. But I just actually feel that the club possibly needs something like that. But I feel also as well, see if you're a potential manager, I think you're put off for the last 24 hours.
You bring me with my next point perfectly, Regan. You've got a funny habit of doing that, mate. So, like, obviously, the circus just continues at Celtic Park, obviously, over the last 24 hours. And I think it's an embarrassing look for Celtic. Like, the world sports media is just looking at us and just saying, what the ever-loving Christ is going on over at Celtic. You know, you're getting 73-year-old Martin O'Neill with his Zimmer frame to come in and take the first press conference along with Shaun Maloney, who was brought in as a youth development coach and stuff like that. And, you know, they're now going to be taking charge against Falkirk and more than likely Rangers at the weekend. And in addition with that, the statement that Dermot Desmond has came out with absolutely hammering Brendan Rodgers on quite a personal level as well. Like, this isn't just talking about like his managerial abilities. He's going after him as a person, as a human being. What manager out there, Phil, looks at the absolute shit show that's going on at Celtic now and saying, "Oh, Dermot Desmond seems like a nice guy. I want to go and work for him." Do you know what I mean? Like saying, for all you know, you could be on the end of a few bad results and, you know, he's putting out statements calling you an absolute wanker and all the rest of it, because it's basically what's unfolded over the last 24 hours, and it's a really mental state of affairs. I think Regan's just dropped out for a minute, but hopefully they can get him back on. But Phil, what do you like? Who the hell looks at this job now and like Celtic's always going to be an attractive job no matter what, right? They get that, but right now with what's going on, who looks at Celtic and goes, "Well, we're 8 points behind Hearts. We've got Rangers at the weekend, obviously, but that'll deal with itself." And has to get the reins back with the support, get the reins back with the players, and compete with this board and you know, Dermot Desmond. Who looks at that and says, "Well, I fancy a crack at the whip at that"?
Does again that's just another thing that's just going to go against us right now. But there is a draw, Celtic. Yeah, right. It is a big job regardless. But you just read it out earlier. Look at all the managers in the last decade, 15 years that have said the same thing. So there's a pattern here. You might get an initial maybe 1-2 years when it's all good, but it seems like when they get to the third year, it seems to be the same thing, or even in the second year, there's questions over the recruitment and whatnot. It slows down at a snail's pace. And also something as well that has been brought up earlier, I started this comment from Kieran McFadden. Why is a shareholder who isn't even the owner making a personal statement through the club website, which is one of the biggest elephants in the room? Because that's true. He is the majority shareholder, but it's a bit weird. You don't see that happening too often at other clubs. Obviously, not a statement of that tone as well, but the majority shareholder getting a moment to have a statement they've put out. So even that's a bit out of place as well when you think about it, Connor, to the rest of world football. So it will still be an attractive job, no doubt about it. There is still that. It is still Celtic, but as I say, right now we just need to get some kind of stability. So the interim thing has to be literally that. It can only be a few games. Just picking up on a point Regan made as well, but a name he brought up there. Craig Bellamy's name is going around with a lot of fans right now, Regan. But one thing that I would say about Bellamy, there's two things to be aware of. If Wales qualify for the World Cup, which they're in a good position to do, at the very least, I think they can get a playoff spot, and he's got them playing no bad, then obviously he'd be out of commission for the summer because he's not going to walk away from that. He's a very, very passionate Welshman. He loves his country. He will want to take Wales to the World Cup. And secondly, Wales over the last few years in particular have had a habit of their managers really performing well. Like Chris Coleman did really well with them, getting to multiple tournaments. But then when he went over to club football, it went completely wrong. Club football and national football are worlds apart. And that would be my concern. Bellamy still hasn't really done any club management yet. I would rather see him at club level to see how he performs there. I know he's done some coaching and that. I mean, it's the same with Shaun Maloney. Shaun Maloney's got a good reputation in his coaching side of things. But at management level, that's why I'm put off by him being the outright manager of Celtic. But with Bellamy, he's talking a good game right now because I've listened to a lot of interviews with him in recent weeks because his name's been coming up as a suggestion as a Celtic manager. But I say the World Cup could be a hindrance. You don't want to be appointing a manager or trying to appoint a manager when he's going to go to the World Cup because we're going to need all hands on deck next summer. And I'm worried about national football coming to club football. I'd rather see him do a bit of that first, Regan. Oh, has he muted himself? He has.
I can totally get that. The other person I'm thinking about is Nuxon at Boardroom, but I don't think he takes it because he's regularly backed by Boardroom and he takes them places in Europe. And like the Celtic board should be speculating to accumulate any qualifiers. And you look at a club like Bruges, who that they were in the second round of qualifying, and then they smashed Rangers, and then they got that £40 million. Now that's what Celtic should be doing. Celtic should be going in there well equipped. But I think, and I'm sorry to say it, but Celtic have been very, very fortunate that the 2 seasons that they got automatic qualification, and the fact they weren't able to benefit from that shows you that the strategy at the club. Because surely if you've been well equipped for the past 2 years by getting direct entry, you should be perfectly equipped to do well. And I think as well, Celtic as a club need to take accountability. The fact that they let either we did go in the last day of the window. If they knew that Johnny Kenny was going to be the striker, they should have never let Adamida go. As much as people can go, well, Adamida is not much better. Adamida still scored 22 goals last year. It's not as Adamida was a bad striker. He still scored very important goals, and I'm sure he would have done very well in that Hearts game last weekend as well. So I think sometimes we need to look at the sharp reality. Celtic board have done well in terms of trophies, but I don't think that's replicated in terms of transfer business, in terms of actually, of course, Celtic can look back and go, well, we brought in so much money for people in Matt O'Reilly, we brought in money for people like that, but the strategy to replace is an absolute disgrace. I mean, you just need to look at this summer, for example. They sold Nicholas to Como for £18 million. They knew Jota was injured from April. They still didn't replace Jota on the 31st August, and they were scrambling about. And Tunekti, he got rejected on transfer deadline day. Then eventually the clubs came to some sort of agreement. And Brendan Rodgers actually said that deal should have been done before the Champions League qualifier. And even tonight they said that I was hoping that I could have been in by the qualifier. So it's these things that the club needs to be responsibility as well. And one point I want to mention as well is a point on the academy. The club were asked last week by the Celtic Collective about the Celtic Academy, and the players that they brought up was Tierney, McGregor, Forrest, and Dane Murray. Now, for a club that spends millions and millions of pounds on the academy, to bring up players like Tierney, Forrest, and McGregor and Dane Murray, okay, I can see James Forrest, I can see McGregor because they've won loads of trophies, but I think Celtic as a club need to do more. I mean, you look at the striking position as well. Is there not someone in the academy that we could be looking at and going, right, this is a guy that we could promote into to the first team? I think you look at someone like the guy that went to West Ham during the summer, Daniel
Cummins.
Yeah,
Daniel Cummins, aye.
Yeah, I know for a fact that he would have stayed. He would have stayed at the club, but Celtic did make a more persuasive offer for him to stay because he didn't see a pathway. So it's things like that. The club need to do a lot better.
The thing is, it always happens though. As soon as we get any players coming through for the academy and they show any sort of promise, maybe get a couple of games here and there, maybe impress a bit. The big boys down south, or in Germany, Italy, wherever, they snatch them up right away because we can pay you a hell of a lot more than what you're getting now.
Yeah.
Because more than likely, the way that Celtic works is the guys, no matter how good they are, right? We had the hottest youth prospect in European football in Carmo Belly. And it was, and I'm not telling tales at school here. He was one of the hottest youth prospects in European football. The boy was turning up to play games at the La Masia with Celtic when he was a young boy and running rings around about the boys' training in the same academy at Barcelona. Do you know what I mean? And he was showing what he could do from a very young age. And people were caught onto that. They got given a couple of, fleeting appearances here and there. One of them during a absolutely abysmal season during COVID. It was too little, too late, and they decided to move on for the sake of his, his own career. It's always too little, too late with these guys. And then the thing is, but when we're left now with the scraps and what we've got now, and guys like Dane Murray and stuff like that, and it's too big for them to come in for. That game at the weekend against Hearts was not a game that Dave Murray should have been getting brung out the cold to play in. And Colby Donovan, as well as he's done, and I think he's actually much better than Alston. He was fine. I can't really complain about him, but it's negligence to the highest order on the manager as well, because Brendan Rodgers is not, shy of any criticism for this, because he picked him to start in the team. But throughout these seasons, there are games, league games, cup games where we're playing lower level opposition, which these boys should be getting starts in. They should be getting given minutes. They should be getting put out there and saying, go and show me what you can do, son. And if you play really well, see next week against Motherwell at Celtic Park, I'll give you 20 minutes. Something like that. Do you know, if you're playing Clyde in the Scottish Cup, do you know what I mean? In the early Scottish Cup, we shouldn't be putting it like even a 3/4 full strength Celtic team. It should be half or less, because we should still be good enough to go and beat them and give these young boys a pathway to come into the team. But it doesn't happen. And that's on the management as well as the board and the youth setup as well. And it's another area where we're not being run properly at all. And it trickles for the top down. And that's my main point is, like, all of this shit trickles for the top down. It's giving jobs to the boys, type of stuff. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the guys who are in situ at the youth setup now should never be anywhere near it. And they're doing a terrible job. The Celtic B team can't win a fucking game.
And they play in a horrendous setup as well. That's also part of the problem, Con, as to why we keep losing these players, is the current setup they're in. They play they're just playing glorified friendlies in that lower league. They can't get promoted. They can't get relegated. So what's the point? There's no repercussions for the games they play, and there seems to be no path to get into the first team, because Celtic are in a position where they can't bleed into many youngsters. Now, the comment I put up on the screen there, this is a fair point from James McEwen. Brendan Rodgers had the League One early last season, around about Christmas time. We were, 14 points ahead. He chose not to play the youngsters and fringe players, which he probably could have done in the second half of the season, bleed a few of them in a bit more, because there was so many games last season where, in the second half, where they just looked like won the league anyway. So, they're just the loss at St Johnstone, that was one. We lost at Hibs. There was a few games where they just looked like just going through the motions. Give a chance to some of the youngsters at that point, but again, we didn't. And they would win the perfect opportunities to do so. And all that happens is these guys' contracts run down. And you're right, Connor, there's teams in England and across Europe that poach these boys away. And they just head off to pastures new, where rather than playing against like Forest Mechanics and all that, and the non-league football and all these types of teams. So that's unfortunately the problem, that the system that they're in. But yeah, our pathway manager, it seems, who's supposed to be the guy that's to help them to get there, is now the assistant manager. So I don't know who'll fill in now as the new pathway manager, or will Shaun Maloney return to that very soon?
Another point, sorry, Phil. If you look back at the lockdown season, right, Celtic had 4 strikers of high quality. If you look at this season, we've got Ian Ancho and Johnny Kenny. Look back to the lockdown season with Edward, with Lee Griffiths, with Albie Nageti and Patrick Klimala. I mean, there is 4 strikers. So I just don't know why there's this sudden nature now from people at the club and in general football life, that people think that now you should only have 2 strikers. I don't get it.
I know. Alex Ferguson always said in his Man United days, when they were at the peak of their powers, it was always 4-4-2 with Man United. And the best Man U era, the best team, was when they won the treble in '99, and they had 4 strikers. He played 4-4-2 every week. And the 4 strikers that he rotated were Andy Cole, Dwight York, Teddy Sheringham, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And Alex Ferguson always said that, when you're going to play 2 up front, you need 4 top-class strikers. It's like, yeah, but you're right. Nowadays in modern football, it's like, only 2 strikers will do. And we haven't got top-class strikers. That's the thing. They're not even top-class at this stage, Connor.
Like, your top-class, your best striker is a guy who came in, who hardly had any minutes under his belt, who had a good career before, but was so undesired by his club that he was at, being Sevilla in the Iheanacho, that they didn't even want to bother haggling over him to get any kind of compensation for Celtic, which would have been like getting blood out of a fucking stone regardless. But they just decided to cut all ties with him and say, on you go. Just take him. Like we don't even want money for him. Just take him.
James
Like,
McEwen's went to the liberty telling us of 4 strikers on our books. Ian Atchell, injured. Kenny, not good enough. Yamada in the abyss. Osmond, even more in the abyss. Whatever happened to him?
Hasn't even seen first team football. Has he even made the bench for a first team game this season?
I think he was on the bench in one of the European game against Kairat, but never got on. I'm pretty sure he was on that because they pretty much named the entire squad essentially in those games because it was before the actual tournament started. Aye.
See the thing as well, guys. I don't actually mind if Celtic bring in players that they can develop for a couple of years down the line, but who actually thinks that bringing in Osmond as a third choice striker is a great idea? Because of Premier League 2, but Premier League 2 is not the kind of striker you should be buying for Celtic Football Club.
No, definitely not.
I'm pretty sure. By the way, this is but Brendan Rodgers did not escape. A lot of people are saying, "You're going on about the board, you're going about Dermot Desmond." Brendan Rodgers deserves a lot of the valid criticism that was given us this season.
Yes.
And Ian and Callum Osmond, when he came in, Brendan Rodgers said he was going to be for the first team. When we signed, Brendan Rodgers said Callum Osmond was going to be a first team striker for Celtic. He was going to bleed into the first team. He's not fucking done that yet. He never even gave him a single minute of game time since Rodgers was here. So that was a lot of rubbish as well. Either that or Callum Osmond just wasn't living up to the potential that he had. But we'll never know because he's sitting wasting away in the B team for now. And we're probably never going to see him. Along with Jemai Simpson-Pusey, a player who came in with a lot of fanfare about him, hasn't seen the light of day. Struggling for centre-backs at the weekend. Does he even get a sniff? Does he, buggery? But we could go on about
that comment as well. When Tinecti arrived, he said he can play left and right, but then on Sunday he was asked, why don't you? He was asked about Tinecti on the right, and he went, no, he doesn't want to play there. He can't play there, but it was definitely quoted in the article that Celtic published when Tinecti arrived, quotes from the manager bigging him up about, he's versatile, he can play on both sides. So it's like, honestly, it's like those guys that tweet stuff and then there's always a tweet. You go back and you find something to prove them wrong. It's like with Brendan Rodgers, there's plenty of them.
There's always the sheets with Brendan because he does like to talk. But moving on, guys, there is quite a wee tasty rumour floating about the now that CEO Michael Nicholson and potentially Peter Lawwell are going to be sacked in November and replaced with former Leicester City CEO Susan Whelan, who stepped down just this month in October. So under Whelan at Leicester City, they won multiple promotions. They won the Premier League and FA Cup under Brendan Rodgers, reached the European semi-final under Brendan Rodgers during her 15-year tenure. Regan, obviously we have to take this with a massive pinch of salt because that would kind of look like, I don't know, a decent kind of forward-thinking move for the Celtic board to do. And we know that they don't like to do that. But, for the benefit of the doubt, let's just say, take with a pinch of salt, Regan, if this is something that, was to happen, what would be your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it'd be good for the club, but also I still do worry that in the background she'll be learning from the people before her. I mean, how much influence will she have? I mean, will she be learning from what Peter Lawwell and Michael Nicholson have been doing for many years? And okay, people can fire back at me and say, well, they've done a great job in terms of trophies and that. But I think in terms of forward thinking, strategy wise, I don't think they're doing too well in terms of that. And hopefully she can change that because it's something that needs to change at the club. I mean, that I think as well, guys, the people that are in terms of St Mirren and St Mirren supporters and Aberdeen supporters and that, they all say like every time Celtic are playing terrible, Celtic fans like to moan, right? But the point that I make to them is Celtic are not being run properly for many, many years. And the football side is masking what the actual bigger problems are. And hopefully she can come in and be progressive, change the strategy, and we can actually see the strategy move forward with her in charge.
Yeah, it would be a massive step in the right direction just to actually just see some change at boardroom level. But I mean, here's a damning indictment of where we are, and this will put it in perspective when it comes to change at the board. Martin O'Neill is walking back into the Celtic job 20 years after he left, and Peter Lawwell, Brian Wilson, and I think, obviously Dermot Days. I think there's one more that still is on the board 20 years after Martin O'Neill left in 2005, which kind of shows you where they are. So the idea of them having that kind of, root and branch clear out and change, I'd like to think it will happen, because we need it. It needs to be top to bottom. This doesn't end with just changing the manager, because as we've seen, again, go back to the point from earlier, Connor, it just it repeats itself. The cycle repeats itself after 2-3 years, where managers again get stifled by the board. So it's like this needs to change from the top. I believe there's going to be a protest on Wednesday night outside the stadium. Mm-hmm. I think the Celtic Fan Collective have put something out about that. Just it's now changed from the not another penny. They've changed it now to just simply sack the board, big red lines through their faces, and I've just told everybody to just join them outside the main stand at 7:00 on Wednesday night to let them know.
Yeah, obviously, protests are obviously going to continue. I think obviously what we're seeing tonight, obviously, I'd written down this point before the Celtic Fans Collective actually released a statement about the the protest going on. But I think it does need ramped up to, I think, a borderline toxic degree, not in a way that there's going to be any negative press or violence. Do everything peacefully, but you can still peacefully call Michael Nicholson a fanny. Do you know what I mean? Like you can still do that. You can still shout at Dermot Desmond for the stands and tell him that his fucking mustache looks shite and that he's absolutely running the club into the ground and stuff like that. You can still do all that. And this is the thing: is like this needs to be as because Celtic Fans Collective, a collective effort. Everyone needs to be on board with this. Now, if I was going tomorrow to the game, which I'm not because I'm working early in the morning, but I will still be able to watch the game through strictly legal streams, obviously. But if I was going, I would have to get a ticket for free for somewhere because I am obviously not giving them another fucking penny out of my pocket for the entire season.
Yep.
Rightfully so, and I hope all you are the same. I swear to God, Regan, if you go to the game tomorrow and you buy or sell a pie, you're fucking dead to me. I'll tell you that.
Oh, no, I said no pies.
But we need to come together as a support here. Phil, Regan, you, me, Johnny, David, all the boys in the pod, everyone here watching live tonight, everybody who's going to that game tomorrow, I'm begging you from within my soul, please turn up and show your support for the Celtic Fans Collective protest and show these people that are running this club into the ground what you think of them. Peacefully, obviously, need to reiterate that, peacefully, but let your voices be heard. We have to have, what Brendan Rodgers said, the Holy Trinity, the fans, the board, and the manager. Even say, well, it's the fucking unholy Trinity this year because the board, the manager, and the fans have all fell out in one big giant clusterfuck of an argument, and it's rearing its ugly head to the point that we're at this stage. But we all need to take it on our shoulders as supporters and show them what they feel. And like James Kerry, you're saying I'm a miserable Celtic fan. Go and tell me what I've got to be positive about tonight, mate. Go and tell me what I've got to be positive about. I'm going to be positive about the fact that we've got an OEP as the interim manager with Shaun Maloney taking over in charge for tomorrow night, or the fact that our manager left last night and Dermot Desmond put out an absolutely bizarre, scathing, psychotic statement, something like that, or the fact that we're 8 points behind Hearts. Have I got to be happy with that? You tell me, James, but I've got to be happy with it. And I'm sorry to call you out live on air, but I'm going to do it because see with this whole thing, I am a happy Celtic fan when it deserves it to be happy, when I will give everybody working from top to bottom of Celtic credit when it's due, but they have not been due credit for years. The board have not been due credit for years. I give the players credit when they play well. I give the manager credit when he performs well. But it's not been happening recently. So there's nothing to be positive about. We can all get behind Martin O'Neill and Shaun Maloney tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. Not tonight, after all the stuff that's going on. Do you know what I mean? This is our way of getting our thoughts and opinions out there. Because they're not going to listen to the people in the rear who are the yes men in the boardroom and the yes men who work inside Celtic Park. we as people, we as, Celtic fans need to use our collective voice, use this as a soapbox, whether it's live podcasts like this, whether it's turning up to the stadium for live protests, whether it's in the stadium doing protests, whether you're not buying merch and you're affecting their bottom line. And it could be the tiniest tiny way that you're affecting the bottom line for Celtic. But I tell you one thing, they will notice it because they're so obsessed with money. As soon as it affects them in any kind of way, they will start to notice. We need to use, our frustrations and our concerns and take it out on the Celtic board, because it's no less than what they deserve for what they've done tonight. But, Regan, I want to get your opinion on the protest. I hope you're going. I hope when you go tomorrow that you do go, you do attend. You give us, boots on the ground feedback from,
No throwing any metal barriers now, Regan. No, none of that,
don't be
please.
Throwing any sharks.
Don't be doing that, son. None of that, please.
I'm just going to Poundland as we speak. I think it's the right thing to do, Connor. But like you said, it's about doing it in the appropriate way as well, because I want the team on the park to do well. So hopefully every side can do their bit, and hopefully the Celtic team can go off to a winning start as well. Because I think it is important that, like you said, that everybody at the club pulls in the one direction, because it's so important. Brendan Rodgers spoke about it, and I've seen that people in the comments saying, well, what about when Celtic were close to being Bayern Munich last year? Did the board get credit then? Yeah, the board did get credit then. But Brendan Rodgers said to the board after that, this is now the time that we need to spend money and improve for next year. But then the board went, we don't need to spend money because we've just been able to match Bayern Munich, so we don't need to spend. And I think if you look at all clubs, they want to improve year on year, and I think Celtic for too many years have been stagnating. I think when we get one bit of success, we go, okay, we don't need to spend money now because we're doing well. And that's not what a business does. Even if you look at a business in a shop, see if your shop's doing well, I think you bring in new products so it can do even better. It's all about making sure that you bring in new things so more people then go back. It's not about then just going, okay, then we're not going to spend any money on the shop now because everybody's happy. It's about making improvements year on year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the very least you don't sell half the team and expect to get the same results. We ran Bayern Munich really close back in February, and I can't think for a second why anybody in the hierarchy at Celtic would think, we don't fancy a bit of that again next season, going into the next round of the Champions League. So they get a bit of Nicholas Kuhn, they don't really replace him, they drag their heels over transfers. There's a lot of names linked to us during the summer. Doesn't seem to go anywhere. There's talk of haggling over money and whatnot. Adam Idah leaves as grim as Adam Idah could be at times. He was forced out the door with no replacement coming in there. And obviously the Kyogo stuff back in January. And it's like, well, we're definitely not going to get back to that level if you let these players go and don't replace them. At least if they'd actually done some due diligence and, okay, they moved on the likes of Nicholas Kuhn and then got in a suitable replacement. But it didn't happen. And yeah.
Just to bring you in there. Brendan Rodgers said himself on transfer deadline day that Adam Idah won't be moving on unless Celtic bring a replacement in. Then Adam Idah get told to get back to Glasgow. I mean, Celtic as a club then should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed that they are then sending Adam Idah back from Swansea up to Glasgow because they're not able to finance a deal for a player.
Look at Yang.
Yang as well. It happened to Yang. Yep.
Yeah, and I think
Yang's terrible.
Yeah, and I think Maeda said in the Japanese press, see when the Japanese players get transferred, they almost expected to go through. It's the same way. See, as soon as a Japanese player signed for Celtic, you know that it's legit because as soon as it happens, it's already been done. That's why. That's why it was so easy for Ange Postecoglou to get Maeda because they're season almost finishes. So I think the fact that Maeda cleared his locker, moved all his Celtic stuff, and then he has to do it all over again. I mean, that needs to be labelled at the club as well.
Aye. It's just unprofessionalism from top to bottom. I mean, I think we've kind of made a decent dent in it tonight, lads. I think
there was a lot to get through. There was a
lot. I mean, I think we've done pretty well considering, just how up in the air everything is, and just how I think very little we actually do know about what's going on now. But it's kind of getting time to wrap up the now, guys. But before we do go, I'm going to ask Phil and I'm going to ask Regan. I'm going to ask if you can even consider it. Do you have a prediction, Phil, for the scoreline tomorrow against Falkirk?
I think we'll win. I think we'll go out there. I'm not convinced it'll be dramatically different. I think there'll be enough wee tweaks there that they'll get the job done. Because I mean, who took training today? Shaun Maloney, Martin O'Neill probably ran his eye over most of the players. So I think they'll go out and they'll get the win. And then, say Sunday, I'll be back on Friday night with Liam to talk about that. That should be fun. Yeah, Liam's opinion on that one. So he's felt with Brendan Rodgers in recent times, so that'll be fun to hear his side of that. But we will be back for that. But I think we will win. I say then it's just looking ahead to Sunday. So there we go.
What fun that'll be. Regan, what's your prediction for tomorrow night, mate?
I'll go 3-1 to Celtic.
Right, I'll take that. I'm going to go just 2-0, and I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I mean, I could be surprised. I hope I'm surprised, but I very doubt I'll be surprised. But anyway, guys, thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. I think we had over 115 watching at some point tonight, which is really good numbers, especially for us. We're getting ever and ever closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. I think we're only maybe about 30 away, maybe a little bit less than that.
A lot less than that. We're only 5 away the last time I checked.
Right, well, hit the subscribe button, guys. We've maybe hit 1,000 before I press end record tonight. We never know. But guys, if you are so inclined, please hit like, please share, please subscribe to the channel. Please leave your comments below. Any feedback is appreciated, whether positive or negative. Unlike the Celtic board, we take comments on board. So if you guys want to get in touch with us, please do, get in touch. Remember, it's $1.99 a month if you want to come to Boys in the Bus member, which is totally optional. But if you'd like to do it, do really appreciate it. I want to say thank you to Regan. I want to say thank you to Phil for joining me. I think it's been a brilliant chat tonight. I think we've had, gotten a lot off our chest, more so me. but we've had a good wee chin wag tonight, and I do appreciate it. But I am up early in the morning. It's time for my bed. So, adios, ladies and gents. Hail, hail. God bless Martin O'Neill. Cheers, Brendan. And fuck Dermot Desmond.
Right, see you later, guys. Cheers.